Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. It's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am hanging in there. It's Monday, so you're trying to get moving. I should find that somebody's got a case of the Mondays meme, and
Yeah,
just throw that up on the window or the screen. But otherwise, I'm doing just fine.
the earliest Monday meme that I could think of is Garfield back in the day with his books and always hitting Mondays, right?
I
There's no,
mean, yeah, that's true. That's probably the better one. I'm always
yeah,
thinking of Office Space,
yeah,
personally, but
yeah.
maybe that just exposes my age, even though I'm really not that much younger than you.
Yeah, well, no, you are significantly if you consider Office Space compared to me and Garfield. I mean, geez, that's eons difference.
I
So
feel
you,
like 5 years is not that much of a difference, but I mean, in the way that our world changes anymore, who knows? Maybe it is five. Maybe 5 years is an entire generation now.
yeah, but yeah, but either way, yes, we are suffering from the cases of Mondays, or we hate Mondays, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, overall doing all right though. No complaints.
Good, good. Well, what are we working on tonight?
All right, so I'll share my screen and we'll get into it. So I'm going to continue going with animating Calamity, going through and setting up Tinsel to get fed.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we
yeah,
talked last week about how it's subtle differences that really add the life to the characters. You know, the extra foot pivot as she turns, the extra tail flop, right, just to give it a little bit more weight.
yeah,
Um, I'm curious to see where your next steps are because both of those are like, they're like two frames of animation that carry the entire weight of that motion, right? And to me, at least, it's the ultimate sign that it doesn't take a lot to really sell something. It's more about how you use it, right?
yeah. It is. And, there are different philosophies to animation. I'm more of the philosophy of I want to just kind of less is more.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of animators that want to embellish every single frame and make everything a beautiful drawing. But because of the state of our production, which is just pretty much you and I just talking, and then I need to be more lean.
Mm-hmm.
I try to just get as much as I can with one or two key drawings, and then accent those drawings and enhance those few drawings, and then move on and move
Mm-hmm.
on. And so I don't know. If you look at the compilation of our streams, I think it's kind of the main theme I'm kind of going after is lay it out. Animatics are here. Now I just animate on top of it, add a few more frames, and if it's good enough for the human eye to see it and see the
Mm-hmm.
story, I'm pretty happy with that. I can't go after perfection like I could in a bigger team environment because we just don't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll be here till we're 100 years old.
That is true. That is true. I mean, you have the unenviable task of being the only person capable of animating on this project, and animation it's a labor of love, quite frankly. Um, so if you're not in it to win it with animation, you're never going to get anything done.
Yeah, you need to have a certain mindset for it. And then going back to the philosophy aspect, like one of the reasons why we like Calamity Jane was kind of started because we had a huge affinity for the Hanna-Barbera
Mm-hmm.
cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
and they were the masters of just very few drawings to tell the story, and that's kind of a that kind of philosophy kind of carries over for us, I think, a
Mm-hmm.
little. Um, just kind of add a little bit more to that. So yeah, kind of meandering a little bit. Trying to
No, I
explain.
mean they had to work economically because they had a certain amount of frames of animation they needed to deliver a week, right? And so they couldn't just sit there and dwell on a single drawing for hours at a time. They needed to their
Yeah,
animation was it was functional, right? It did what it needed to do, and the art kind of lived in the spaces in between, in my opinion. And the interesting thing is that it created some very, very iconic. I mean, maybe not straight up animation, but poses, right? Like these really memorable
mhm.
things, like that come back to me. Space Ghost is a classic, right? With some of his poses, which then, of course, got repurposed into the very, early Adult Swim days of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they did it also with like C Lab 2021 and the Brack Show and a few other ones where they took old assets. Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. I can't believe I almost forgot Harvey Birdman.
Yeah.
They would take these keyframes from the old cartoons and repurpose them for for these new just bizarre, absurd cartoons, and it was just. I mean, I thought it was brilliant, honestly.
Yeah. I didn't really watch. I didn't get into. I didn't get a chance to really get into Harvey Birdman that much. The other ones, Space Ghost Coast to Coast was the one where I watched all the time, and yeah, it really does. It is neat to see those poses repurposed and be used in a funnier, in a different sense, and kind of bring it to a whole new audience. Whole new generation of people that don't see Space Ghost the same way that older folks do. But
Right, right.
it is funny to kind of bring them more into the modern mainstream.
Well,
Uh,
it's interesting. I mean, I knew about Space Ghost before Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but it's not because I'm so old, right? It's in the early days of the Cartoon Network when they didn't have a lot of original programming. They only had the rights to Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers because Cartoon Network was owned by Warner Brothers. That's what they showed. They showed Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
yeah,
And, so I was introduced to all of those. The Shazam, right? Was it Shazam or was it Kazam? It was Kazam, the genie, and Space Ghost, of course, and Harvey Birdman. Not Harvey Birdman, just Birdman.
yeah.
What are the names of the post-apocalyptic sci-fi with the Triceratops that shot pellets out of its horn?
Vocaloids?
The Herculoids, thank you. Yeah, the Herculoids and Wacky Racers and Droopy the dog and and that's just the Hanna-Barbera side of things. Top Cat. Oh man, I mean so many, and I got introduced to all of them because Cartoon Network just was needed to fill airtime and just dug up all these old cartoons from the archives. So by the time Space Ghost Coast to Coast had come out, I was well versed in Space Ghost. I had seen the entire oeuvre of the Space Ghost as it was originally intended to be viewed.
That's funny.
But yeah, no, I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a riot when they created that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, Cartoon Network, the main stuff I'd watch was Tom and Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that was from like the '60s and '70s. That I completely just sort of. I mean, there was some Yogi Bear stuff and like that I would watch.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of missed out on that whole rich OG Space Ghost and all that kind of stuff. I did watch Herculoids a lot though. I love the Herculoids. I thought they
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
It's interesting. As we're talking, a memory has come to me that I had forgotten until this instance.
Yeah.
At the end of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, they had a fan club, and you could sign up for the fan club, and I did because why not? It was silly and it was fun.
Yeah.
And the guys who worked on the show, who I didn't know at the time because oh man, I was pretty young. When did Space Ghost Coast to Coast come out? Anyway, I was still living in Atlanta, I believe. And so I had no idea that it was just going to Atlanta. And they actually sent me back a signed photograph of Space Ghost on a glossy 8x10. And I don't remember what it said anymore. They sent me an entire transcript of an episode of the show. And they sent me all kinds of weird stickers and just random paraphernalia. And I'm just remembering that now.
Wow. So I wonder how many people did that for this fan club thing where they had to do that. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know, man. But it was
those were like a super fan, so they went, yeah, we really got to get this kid a bunch of tchotchkes,
yeah.
That's funny.
All right. It originally premiered on April 15th, 1994. I was 13 years old.
1994, huh? That's the
Yeah.
first Coast to Coast.
Yeah, that was the first episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
I wonder, so what happened to the show? They just lost ratings. That was it. And it's kind
Well,
of,
according to Wikipedia, it ran on Cartoon Network from '94 to 2001, and then it moved over to the Adult Swim sub brand of Cartoon Network
what?
until 2004, and then it had a 2 more years on something called Game Tap, which I'm not familiar with what that is, but apparently they did 3 more years, I guess, of Space Ghost Coast to Coast on whatever this Game Tap thing is.
Okay.
So it ran for 10 years, pretty much um, without a break, and then another 3 years after a 2 year hiatus. So 13 years all in all is not a bad run.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, and they landed some pretty interesting guests and stuff throughout the run. Like I said, I didn't watch them all the time, but every time I watched it, it was always fun to see exactly who they would get on and stuff like that. It was so bizarre and absurd, um, being interviewed by a cartoon host. I'm surprised they haven't done anything like that in a while. Again, like
I mean, Adult Swim
not
has
that bad.
changed. I feel like it's a different.
Yeah,
It's gotten bigger. It's gotten less kind of garagey. Um,
yeah, yeah.
garage animators, right? Like I don't know that something like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I mean, I think it might still be on Adult Swim. I don't know, but it's more of a legacy thing in my opinion. I think if someone proposed something like Aqua Teen Hunger Force now at Adult Swim, I don't think it would get a lot of traction, but it's kind of grandfathered in because it was part of the starting lineup, right? There was Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, C Lab 2021, Home Movies. I'm trying to remember what
Mhm.
else was a part of that original um, Adult Swim lineup, but it
Mhm.
was those are the ones that I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think you coined a term that I always associate with Calamity Jane, which is garage a garage studio.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the approach that, because we have no choice anyway. But that's kind of what how I approach this cartoon. I want to do as much as I can, but
Mm-hmm.
it is like animating in a garage and just trying to get something out and trying to tell a story as much as we can. But the difference is you and I have hung out in Warner Brothers for a long time, so those sensibilities we're trying to bring to this cartoon as well.
Yeah, I mean it. It's a real mash of all of our memories of cartoons. I mean, we both love cartoons, and we have a lot of parallels in what we enjoy. And then we have differences as well. Like I think you are more inclined to enjoy a Pixar movie every now and again,
Oh yeah,
whereas I am so burnt out of their storytelling style and their animation style that if I never see another Pixar movie ever again, it'll be too soon, right?
yeah,
Um,
there's such see, but I understand kind of where you're at. I mean, you're burnt out on the beauty of it, maybe. I mean, I don't I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but
it's
see,
You're
I
not you're
love
not wrong. I will say you're not totally wrong about that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so. I mean, their films and Disney too. Their stuff is so good, so polished that it's not special anymore because you see it every single time, and it's always perfect tens. Then what else is there? Um, for me, I just appreciate the spectacle of how beautiful it is. Like, and that's enough for me. But again, it's to each their own. I think I feel like whenever we talk about your jaded perspective, bleak view of production house, top of the tier animation studios. That's kind of where you're at now. So yeah, now I'm curious what you think.
I agree with you. I think that I'm a little fatigued on the glossiness of Pixar and Disney.
Yeah.
I definitely find that unappealing at this point, but it's not necessarily the production values in and of itself. Well, for instance, a new anthology of Love, Death, and Robots
Uh-huh.
is premiering soon, and I love that series. Um,
Yeah, absolutely worth the watch.
and it's a very very adult show. Like it's not. I mean, there's violence, there's nudity, there's
Hmm.
it's very adult oriented, but it's phenomenal. And there's all these different styles,
Yeah.
2D, 3D, what have you, different stories. It's just all these different creator voices. It's great. It's fresh. It's different. It's kind of rough. Some of them are kind of crappy, and some of them are great, and it runs the gamut. And I love the variety and the interest there, right?
Hmm.
Another one that I really enjoyed, and I'm kind of sad that I don't know that they're going to do another one, is Midnight Gospel, also on Netflix, where they took Duncan Trussell, I think his name is. He's a podcaster,
Yeah.
and they took several of his episodes, and what's his face, whose name I'm forgetting right now, who did Adventure Time. Um, oh shoot, I forgot his name. Anyway, he did all the animation. Now, the animation is inspired by the conversation, I want to say, that Trussell's
Okay.
having with his guest, but it has nothing to do directly with um, with what they're talking about. For instance, the first episode, it's got Dr. Drew from Loveline on it, right? And they're talking about the nature of drug use and the nature of consciousness and existentialism and that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But the actual cartoon is about a zombie invasion, and so it's these two characters, and all of the episodes are framed in this way. The Duncan Trussell's character goes into this world and starts interviewing a random citizen in this world, and while they're having this conversation, a story happens around them.
Okay.
It's very very fun. I really really enjoyed it, and um, it was just a really creative, interesting use of animation, right? And I feel like at this point, that's kind of what really gets my motors running. Is not necessarily. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. It doesn't have to be redefining what it means to be animation. It just has to be novel and
Yeah.
something that I haven't seen a million times before. And for me, Disney is just I've seen this a million times before, and that's what it boils down to. It's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. And I totally get that. Yeah. Love, Death, and Robots is a really good sampler of a whole bunch of different styles all kind of meshed together, and you get to just kind of watch them on your own time. And none of them, the qualities, the great stuff. All of them are great, but they're all very different too. Not something you see, and because of the themes, the mature themes, you're not going to see them come out of Disney or Pixar.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I will say, to try to defend Disney and Pixar, like I think Pixar have these little shorts where I think they send off a group of their little of animators, especially ones that are in training or kind of up and up, kind of people that are in their stable, and they kind of do some stuff that's kind of on the side, and it's really fun. And like they're not really done that perfect 3D dimensional style, a little bit more painterly and stuff. But again, even that stuff is beautiful, and it's really well animated and stuff like that. It's not exactly the same, and it's very safe and sanitary. So again, it's fun to kind of have that endearing stuff and see it, but animation is so much more, you know, and thankfully the time that we're in now, a lot more experimentation like Love, Death, and Robots are out there to kind of shepherd in all kinds of different takes, in the past 20, 30 years, we've seen that. Space Coast Coast to Coast obviously was a huge one that kind of helped push that along too. But before that, like, I don't know if you're going to be way too young to remember this, but for me, the ones that were pushing anything was like heavy metal.
Oh,
Back
I
in,
mean, of course I've seen heavy metal. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, that was it. You didn't really have much that was actually counter to Disney stuff.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I didn't read the cartoon all that much, but I definitely saw the movie many times. I mean, I even watched Heavy Metal 2000, which was not great.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard to the original. I don't know how I appreciate the effort, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it too is that I don't. I just feel like it didn't. If it's been a long time since I've seen Heavy Metal 2000, but it was more traditionally animated,
huh?
whereas the original was very heavily rotoscoped.
Ah,
And rotoscoped animation has this very interesting
yeah.
feel. Like you're looking at a rotoscoped cartoon, like the
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings cartoon was heavily rotoscoped, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
And you can tell that, like, I don't know, I really dig rotoscoped animation. It's got such a weird vibe to it that I really
Yeah.
really enjoy.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
with you now. It's really fun. It's very tedious, but boy, it's fun to look at.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, most rotoscoped cartoons are always adult themed. Like, so there was, heavy metal, obviously, and there's a bunch of like old Frank Frazetta inspired, like, Trog or Conan style cartoons that are all very adult themed, lots of nudity and dudes in loincloths. And I don't really see a lot of like children's animation, children focused animation that uses rotoscoping. Off the top of my head, at least. I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with it.
again, I'm with you on that too. I don't think there is. I don't think there is anything out there for kids that has rotoscoping, which is odd. Kind of think of it, but yeah, rotoscoping rotoscoping's always been around, but you don't see it all that much. But I think it kind of made a comeback thanks to that movie that came out. I don't know, gosh, it's been probably 10 years now. But Waking Life kind of helped bring it back a little bit with their what they were tracing over for. Do you remember that? Do you remember that film?
I haven't seen Waking Life. No, is that
Yeah,
is that Linklater? Because he did Scanner Darkly as well, and that was all CG rotoscoped, but it was the same basic idea.
yeah. I don't know what the technique was, but I remember it just following humanoids or following the people around, and it was like the jittery, caffeinated kind of shaky, squiggly lines a lot, but with paint, like with much more
Mm-hmm.
feel or stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it was. I don't think it was traditionally. I don't know if it was traditionally hand drawn versus a program or an algorithm that was kind of put over the top of it. But even fast forwarding to now, there's a show on Amazon called Undone. I think
Undone.
that
Yes, I season two is out. I still haven't watched it though.
I
Yeah.
think it's the same team that did Waking Life. Maybe I'm not sure. So
Hmm.
this is where you got to come in. If you know about Link, did you say Linklater? Ladder was
Richard Linklater he did a Scanner Darkly, but no, it's Raphael Bob Waxberg
okay.
did Undone, the same guy who did BoJack Horseman.
Okay.
Um, let's see here. Yeah,
Um,
okay. I see. I recognize it now. Richard Linklater did a second rotoscope movie. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, Waking Life was the Richard Linklater one. Yeah, yeah.
okay. Yeah. They kind of he kind of brought it back into conversation again. Like, oh yeah, by the way, we can still do rotoscoping.
Mm-hmm.
Here's new spin on it, and it's great. It's fun to see that. Yeah, but yeah, Undone's the one that kind of is taking the cake now for that kind of feel. But it is not again another mature. It's
Yeah,
not
again,
that's
not for children. So we go right back to this. It's I've not seen a lot of rotoscoped animation with kids in mind, and I wonder if it's just I don't know
yeah,
why, but it just sort of is. But yeah, no, Undone is great. Like I love Rosa Salazar and Bob Odenkirk,
yeah.
and Raphael Bob Waxberg.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love season one, and I actually have completely forgotten that season two is out, so I'll need to get on Amazon and watch that.
Yeah, I think it just came out a couple of weeks ago or something. It feels like it's just like, oh, by the way, here it is. It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, and it's the thing that I loved about it is it's such a respectful commentary on schizophrenia,
Mhm.
and I also love that it blurs the line between what is a mental health disorder and fantasy, and it was just infinitely fascinating to watch.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So in any case, I really like Rosa Salazar and I really like Bob Odenkirk. So it's just great to see them acting together.
What else?
Um,
What else has she done?
Well, the first place I saw her in was Alita Battle Angel, and
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
then the other thing that I saw her in, which she was really excellent in, was a brand new cherry flavor, which was that
Okay.
limited series on, or as we used to call it when we were younger, a mini series. Back when it was on broadcast television, but yeah, a limited series on Netflix based on a novel of the same name, and it's like if David Cronenberg and David Lynch did a project together. That's kind
Uh-huh.
of like what brand new cherry flavor. That's how I would describe it.
Okay. Huh.
But that show had Catherine Keener in it, who is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Mm,
So that makes it really easy to watch.
yeah. Yeah, maybe one of these days I'll have to check that one out. On my list right now, I just finished Outer Range. I remember I was talking to you about that a couple of streams ago about Outer Range. I'm not sure what to tell you now or if you've had a chance to watch it.
No, I'm still deep in my South Park deep dive. Speaking
Oh,
of
okay.
interesting animation styles.
Yeah, there we go. There's another one. Yes. Yeah. Um, I don't know whether I want to steer you towards Outer Range anymore. I really like the first few episodes of it. I thought
Mm-hmm.
it was really good. Um, you know, the last three episodes or so was kind of spaghetti-ish a little bit for
Hmm.
me. I'm
Interesting.
going to see what other people think out there in regards to Outer Range because I like the setting a lot. It takes place in Wyoming, beautiful vistas to see. It's
Yeah.
really great for filmography, for filming and stuff like that. But yeah, Josh Brolin, I think he's a great actor. I think he can hold. He just holds his own. Really good. His character was interesting, but the last three episodes or so, I don't. I'm not sure if I can. I'm kind of glad you haven't watched it. I'm glad you're on your South Park binge still because
Mm-hmm.
I would have felt guilty to hit the eject button. I steered you wrong on something. But if you like sci-fi, that's the thing is it's kind of a fun. I still enjoyed it, but I wasn't as happy as I was when I first started it. Let's put it
Mm.
that way. So
Interesting.
yeah, um, yeah. Without trying to spoil anything, because maybe you might still give it a shot. The first few episodes are still worth watching. But yeah, and let's see if it reels you in if you get around to it.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, it's still on my list. I will eventually get around to it. I think once I finally burn myself out of South Park, um, uh, I'll probably move on to Undone.
yeah.
But then after I finish Undone, then yeah, maybe I'll hit Outer Wilds. Or that's a video game, Outer Range.
Yeah. So what's your goal with South Park? You just want to watch all of them again?
At first, I was just cherry picking my favorite episodes,
Wow.
and then it just sort of became a thing I was putting on in the background while I did other stuff,
Yeah.
and then it became a thing where I was watching it and going, "Holy crap! This episode came out in 2004." I mean, my memory of it is like this is really recent, but I
Yeah.
mean, South Park, and I didn't really even realize this until I started rewatching it. It had a major impact on me. My
Hmm.
memories of so many of these episodes are so crystal clear,
Yeah.
um, and it's like irregularly so for something that I'm watching from 15 years in the past, right?
Hmm.
I mean, there are movies that I saw 15 years ago that I couldn't tell you a single thing about now, but there are 30, 40, 50 episodes of South Park that I'm like, I thought this came out 5 years ago. I didn't know this came out 15 years ago, right? Because it
Wow.
made such an impact on my memory. Um, and I guess I'm not surprised because of the time frame when I was watching it. The 2000. So, South Park changed um, when the episode Scott Tenorman Must Die premiered. And I don't know if you remember that episode. I don't even know if you're a fan of South Park.
I appreciate South Park a lot, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a hardcore fan. I like it. I think it's funny
Yeah.
back whenever I watch it. I just don't. I haven't gotten around to just sitting down and watching like a whole season. I don't think I've ever seen a whole season actually. Um, but
Well, I
it's
mean,
it's
it's fine to cherry pick. I mean, there's a bunch of stinker episodes that I'm like, I don't even remember watching this episode. But when it's good, it's some of the best satire around. And back in like season 5, season 6, shortly after the movie came out, and I remember we talked about how it's like, oh crap, the subtitle's a penis joke, and I didn't even realize it until I was 40 years old.
Yeah.
Um, um, but shortly after that, season 5, season 6, I don't remember exactly when, they did an episode called Scott Tenorman Must Die. And in this episode, this bully, Scott Tenorman, keeps tricking Cartman to like glue pubes on his face. He steals money from Cartman. He's finally gotten the best of Scott of Cartman, right? Like someone his can out Cartman.
Yeah.
And of course Cartman will not take this lying down, and so he concocts this incredibly elaborate plan that culminates with Scott Tenorman's parents being murdered, Cartman grounding them up into ground chuck, mixing them in with a chili, and then convincing Scott Tenorman to eat the chili.
Yeah, you were talking about this, I think, 2 streams ago.
Yeah. And after that episode, who Cartman was, he went from just this jerk to this unrelenting sociopath, right? And it really opened up another level of kind of the stories that they could tell, because Cartman sort of became an avatar for the overly sociopathic, narcissistic nature of our current culture, right? And this was back in like 2002, for God's sake, before the complete proliferation of social media across all things. And they were just so prescient with a lot of it, and yeah. So then, when Cartman became an avatar for the worst aspects of society, the entire show changed, and it went from sort of this silly dick and fart joke TV show to this biting satire that also had a lot of dick and fart jokes. And it turned, and that's when it also turned into the town folk of South Park being a surrogate for the vox populi of the American culture, where any sort of histrionics or cultural mores du jour of the minute, right? The people, you could always count on the people of South Park to represent the worst instincts of society, right? And it's just, some of it is so disturbingly prescient. I mean, there are episodes that came out in 2003, 2004 that are eerily still, like, the commentary is still disturbingly appropriate for the cultural moment that we're going through right now. And it's really shocking. So at that point, like when I started watching this and started being surprised how old they were, now I'm just been actually like just watching it to kind of relive the show. So what turned into something to kill time in the background has become an actual investment in reconnecting with South Park.
That's really funny. But that's the thing about South Park too, is because they're in the half-hour bite-sized increments. You never feel like it's too much of a commitment to watch an episode here or there, and
right.
And you're committing too much time. Whereas a Disney movie, you got to commit the entire 90 minutes plus to watch it and not get distracted, and that's almost a challenge in today's world. Feels like.
Yeah, and I feel like I've said this in the past, but yeah, I mean, the Satoru Iwata, God rest his soul, once said that someone asked him in an interview, do you find Sony and Microsoft to be your main competitors? And he said no.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean? And he said, everything is our main competitor. TV is our main competitor. Social media is our main competitor. And I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
he said, there are so many ways in our modern society that people can utilize their time and spend their leisure time, that it's not about video game companies competing with video game companies. It's about everybody competing for the leisure time of their consumer base. Uh,
Yeah.
and it was like, yeah, that's 100% correct, right? So like you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're myopically trying to compete with with just one other single platform holder, right? Because it's not just them that you're competing with. It's not like people. I mean, there are some people who their only hobby is playing video games, but those people are 50 years old and live in their mother's basement, right? And they don't do anything else. Or they're 15 years old living in their mother's basement and they have nothing else to do, right? But generally speaking, most people have things that they have different things that they want to experience and play with and interact with. And so, yeah, you're really competing with all leisure activities, not just video games. And it's a really good, I just thought it was a really prescient response.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of there's a lot of competition for your eyeballs now. So again, why do you want to commit? And this is where you're good. You're good at this. You're much better at this when it comes to video games than I am, which is you hit the eject button on a video game much faster than I do because it's something cost thing. But
yeah.
same thing with films. If once I've dedicated X amount of time into something, into a film, then I might as well finish it. Unless it's just so bad, or I get so angry at a story plot point that I just have to hit the eject button. But Outer Range is a good example. Like I love the show for the first 7 episodes, and then it started getting kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so Amita and I were both watching, and she was ready to hit the eject button. She has the same tolerance level you do, actually. She's much better than I am. So she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to watch this anymore." I was like, "But we spent some hours watching all of these episodes," and I was trying to plead my case. So I kind of sort of we watched it with her, not really wanting to watch it, but she kind of watched it while looking on her phone while I just watched it and kind of just grew more and more annoyed and confused. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the writing was on the wall still did it.
Yeah,
Um,
my ex-wife, it was like that. She, like you, she was, again, this is all things. I'm willing to pull the plug, right? Like I've got a million other things I could be doing. I have a
yeah,
million ways to spend my leisure time. Um,
yeah,
and admittedly, South Park has reclaimed that time right now. But yeah, I mean, the second I stop enjoying something, I will give you a slight buffer, right? Not every hour of television is going to be amazing.
uh-huh.
But the second I get a sense that it's like, nope, I pull that ripcord and I don't ever look back. And my ex-wife, it just always drove her crazy because she was in it for the long haul. No, it'll get good again. It'll get good again. It'll get good again. And I'm like, nope, it won't. I can tell you right now, it won't. I've seen a million TV shows. I know when something's not going to be good again. And I was never wrong. Never wrong. And it would drive her crazy because she would commit all this time to it. And then at the end, she'd go, I didn't like it. And I went, okay, great. I know. I knew you weren't. Like, I mean, you know, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Well, I mean, as far as your ex-wife, yeah, I playing that role on my side of things, it is still fun to torture my significant other by making her watch these terrible things,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
equal for her because I don't have any idealistic goals that it will get better. I'm just mad and I just want to finish it. Like, I just want to there might be an inkling shot, but then it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, again, like with us in video games, like I play the Souls games and you don't understand, like for you, like, it's like, why would you put yourself through that torture, that the torture gauntlet to play those games? But here I am, I still do it, it's just weird,
Hmm. Yeah,
but
I mean, that is kind of one of them. One of the nice things about the age that we live in is our options for using our leisure time are nearly infinite, um, and that actually is one of the few exciting things that we have at our disposal now. I mean, I listen to my mother and father talk about what it was like when they were our age and younger, and even more dramatically, um, back when I used to play poker with those guys, and I was the the youngest by like 30 years,
Mhm.
and listening to their stories. I mean, our options are limitless, limitless, right? Um, and my parents and people older than them, their options are far more limited in terms of what they could do with their leisure time. Now, life was also a lot harder and a lot more manual, and so
Mhm.
you didn't have as much leisure time. And so I think what is it? Air. What is it? What is that cliche where things fill the space, right? So if you make things if you expand the space that something can occupy, it will expand to fill that space. Um, and that's what's going on with leisure time. Is as we have more leisure time, there are more leisure activities to pursue, right? Because the basically the economics of it can support that. But in terms of options for leisure times, it's never been a better time to be alive, at least in the developed nations of the world.
Yeah, yeah,
That being said, there's an awful lot of crap going on right now.
yeah, yeah. And we're talking about first world um, nitpicky stuff. It's actually, means that we're very fortunate. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. But in any case, um, seems like you are coming to a stopping point right now.
yeah, so I made this pose up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this is a sketch. Obviously, it's and it's really off model, but I didn't care because again, all I want to do is get the point across that it's her with now the hose. So
Mm-hmm.
she bends down, gets the hose, boom, and pops it open, and there we go. We have to see a rough animation, and she feeds tinsel. So the new pose that I got for this is down here.
Mm-hmm.
I was not looking at it, so like I do like this shape of her. Like I love this shape here of that.
Okay. Sort of the S. Yeah.
Yeah, that yes shape, yeah. And so in that regard, this one right here kind of has a little bit more. But there's something about this pose that I like too, and I didn't really intend that for that to happen, but I'm kind of going back and forth on these. There's something kind of I don't know something. I know it's upright. It's not necessarily as exciting, but there's something about it that I like about it, and I don't know. I can't put my finger on right now as to why that is.
I mean, my opinion is that I don't have one because I'm looking at these two pieces out of context.
Huh?
I need to see them in context of like the animation and how it leads into it, because
Mhm.
basically, like right now, um, if I really had to choose, I'd choose the one on the right with her standing upright.
And so
Um,
what's your gut telling you about that?
which just it has a little bit more strength to it. Her
Uh-huh.
knees bent feels like she's having trouble holding the tube and she's about to drop it, whereas
Yeah.
the one on the right, it seems like she's got better control of it. But I don't know. Either might work depending on the context, right? Like, do we want her to be struggling to grab the hose and feeding tinsel, or uh, does a little bit more confidence in that action make more sense?
So I think you answered it for me. And that is I do want her to have struggle with it. Like she's like, I guess this whole moment is her going, what do I do here?
Mm-hmm.
Like I want confusion. So for me, confusion is being said with this post over here. She's like kind of gingerly going, and kind of and she kind of like, okay, I guess this is how you feed tinsel. So but they both could be, even with the upright one,
Mm-hmm.
you can still convey all that with the animation, so it's not a big deal. And
Yeah.
I mean, him and Han over, this is like again another in animation terms, the first world problem. It's like it's not a big deal. Both will work, and it'll just happen to be what I want to animate at the end of the day.
I mean, I
But
think once you integrate the pose into
yeah,
the shot and you see the transition from one frame to the next, I think that'll inform what the
yep,
right pose is for her.
yeah. I thought this would be a good spot to kind of stop at least and kind of have a discussion with you. Like sometimes, like when I'm getting ready to animate something, like something what's going on in my head a little bit, for fun, just for process wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think both could work. I think it's if to me, if you're trying to convey that she's struggling and she's not as confident as she could be on her feet, then the left one is better.
Yeah.
From a conveying confidence standpoint, the one on the right feels more confident to me, and I
Cool,
think
cool.
that that's why I like it more.
Okay.
Again, out of context of anything else.
Yep. Yep. I totally get it. But cool. Well,
Okay.
helpful though.
Well,
But yeah, we're
we've been going for 45 minutes now, as of this second, um, and I think that that's pretty good. We had quite a run today. Lots of real deep dive on animation this week.
yeah, it was unexpected. I was going to talk about Mario Rabbids and I was going to get glowing in review. You steered me right on that game, but we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, yeah, well, it's not going anywhere, and maybe you'll have finished it by that point. And and speaking of pulling the ripcord on things, I got to like within 3 missions of the end of the game, and I got stuck
Yeah.
on this one map, and I'm like, you know what, I got something else to do, and I never went back. I'm three missions
Yes.
from the end of the game, and I'm like, nah, whatever.
Gosh.
So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, we'll wrap it up here then, and we'll be back. I believe we'll be back next week. Yes, but then the week after that. So not next week, but the week after that, we will not be here. And I'll remind everybody next week. I will be in Victoria, Canada, for a long weekend to visit some friends. But then after that, we'll be back to normal. But next week, everything is fine. And we will probably chat about Mario and Rabbids, unless I find some other animation tangent to go on for
Yeah.
45
Fun.
minutes. Yeah.
Me too. Either way, win-win.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you all next Monday at 9:30 East Coast time, 6:30 West Coast time. You can find us on Patreon just by going to calamityjane.rocks. Otherwise, we will see you soon. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night.